Welcome to the Federation CJA 360 podcast, the pulse of Montreal's Jewish community.
Welcome to episode 3 for April 2023. I'm Glenn J. Nashin. Today, we are talking all about Israel at 75 with Yaron Deckel, Canadian Director of the Jewish Agency for Israel. Our mini-Fed segment is a monthly peek behind the scenes at Federation CJA. Natou Suissa will bring us an update on community impact of the current CJA campaign. We'll meet Igor Ezriel and Olga Saknina of La Terrasse, RSJ Philanthropy's award winners. The Boychiks from YidLife Crisis are here to wish you a happy Passover. Standing ovation is our chance to applaud some extraordinary contributions out in the community. And we'll wrap up with one more thing from Yair as he speaks to an inspiring young leader in Abu Dhabi. And now, here's the president and CEO of Federation CJA, Yair Szlak.
Less than 24 hours ago, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu suspended the proposed judicial reform. Quoted as he said, "We are not standing before enemies. We're standing before brothers. We're saying now we cannot have a civil war." The last 12 weeks have brought Israel into unprecedented tensions and turmoil. Some commentators saying that we haven't seen such tensions in Israel since before Milchemet Yom Kippur War, which in itself, if diagnosed, brought similar tensions within Israeli society, whether we're talking about Ashkenazi, Sephardic, but that is a whole different chapter, which we're not going to unpack today. I am very, very proud and thrilled to have with us Yaron Deckel. I know Yaron from years of his work as the chief bureau in Washington, D.C. for different news outlets in Israel, as a commentator, as a reporter, and today thrilled to be a partner of Federation CJA as the regional director of the Jewish Agency for Israel. Yaron, firstly, thank you for joining us. I know it's early in the morning, you're out in Vancouver, but thank you for joining us at this early hour. Yaron, let's get into it.
Thank you very much for having me. Thank you very much, Yair.
Yaron, let's get right into it. Why are we here today? What is it about the judicial reform that has brought us here? And let's go back to 1992 to give context to how we got here.
Well, it's a good question. The tension we have seen is unprecedented in the last 30, 40 years in Israel. And I think the protest and the rallies against the judiciary reform, which initiated by the government and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who we should remember is the longest serving prime minister in Israel and a very, very experienced politician, evoked a lot of tension, not because only the will of the government to try to minimize the power of the Supreme Court, but also because of other issues. We should remember that Prime Minister Netanyahu has a trial in the last 2.5 years, which also annoyed many of the protests. And there is also the question with the government, which was elected in free elections in Israel on November the 1st, will the government serve the base of the government and all the citizens of Israel? So we have seen lots of tension, but the hardcore issue, as you mentioned, is the judiciary reform and the feeling of the protesters that the government would like to take over the Supreme Court and lower the independence of the Supreme Court and try to minimize the influence of the Supreme Court, which even the supporters of the reform at the certain point in the last 48 hours had a feeling that it should be done differently. They didn't criticize the reform itself, but they thought the way to do it is not the way the Prime Minister and his Minister of Justice decide to do. So we saw different issues that came together, and hundreds of thousands of Israelis went to the streets to protest against the government and against Mr. Netanyahu.
And let's go back in history, right? Why does this all take place? 1992, the Knesset passes a law. 1995, at the time, the chief, Aharon Barak, the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, adopts the law as the law of the land. And really, since 1995, we've seen government after government debate the issue of the power of the Supreme Court. What
Well,
is that friction that we're talking about?
there is no doubt that since the 90s, since the law of rights, the Bill of Rights, has passed the Parliament, the Knesset, the Supreme Court got into situations and decisions that were unprecedented, including political issues and questions of war and peace. And many people thought that there is no reason that the judges will get into that issues, because the people who have to run the country are those who are elected by the public, members of the government, members of the cabinet, prime minister, minister of defense. It's the second important political portfolio in the cabinet in Israel. Is not the minister of finance as other countries, for instance. It's the minister of defense, because of the security situation in Israel. So there is no doubt that the Supreme Court got into issues which it didn't get into before. The supporters of the Supreme Court said, well, the politicians made the vacuum and they didn't want to make decisions. And because they were afraid not to take unpopular decisions, someone had to push them to take a decision or decide. But those who criticize, and there are many people, including in the other camp, those who are against the government, think that there should be a reform. The question, obviously, how to do the reform. Mr. Netanyahu right now has 64 solid majority, 64 seats out of 120. It's a solid majority. It's a solid victory, clear victory on the elections. And the question, will there be a dialogue with the other side or not? So some of them thought reform, yes, with a dialogue with the judiciary system, for instance, or with the opposition. Others thought, no, majority is a majority, and the government has its full right to move forward with any reform it wants, because it was elected freely not too long ago. We are talking just less than 6 months ago by the elections in Israel. So this is the core debate. It goes back, as you mentioned, back to the 90s. But now this is the first government who decided to go forward with the reform without the consent of the Supreme Court or the Attorney General. And this caused the flames we have seen in the last few weeks in Israel.
And there are a few issues that you need to unpack in there. Number one is Israel does not have a constitution. So defining a law of the land, there is no formula to say that 75% of Knesset votes need to vote in favor, for example. So there's a number of different issues. Of course, the issue of how Supreme Court judges are appointed to the court becomes an issue. And what we are talking about is, and you know this from the number of democracies you've visited and around the world, a healthy democracy has a strong tension between the executive office, the legislative office, and the judiciary. And there are those on all sides who would say today the judiciary in Israel has a disproportionate amount of power. It can overrule a freely elected Knesset decision because it has been given that power. And the question is, how do we get to a balance? Now, what I understand from the suspension, and again, a lot to be determined in the next days and months to come, is that the current government has agreed to sit down and discuss a broader consensus in terms of how to get there. But we've heard things like a notwithstanding clause, like we have here in Canada. Notwithstanding what the court says, the government can pass a law. And people got very, very upset, obviously, hearing that kind of language, and it created a lot of tension. How do we walk back from that, and maybe we close off this conversation by saying, how do we get back to civil discourse and calm down the flames?
I totally agree with you, Yair. The question of what is the power of the Supreme Court is connected to the question, what are the breaks that the society or the politician will take? Canada has the charter. Some other countries do have the constitution. Israel doesn't have those. And there are only the laws that Knesset passes, sometimes land laws, sometimes regular laws. And the question, and I'm going to give you an example, which is to the extreme. For instance, what happens if terrorism, for God bid, let's hope not continues, and there is a reform in the coalition that Arab citizens will be able to vote every 2 terms. Not every term, but every 2 terms. Who in Israel will say, this is unconstitutional? We don't have a constitution, we don't have a charter, but with all due respect, a majority of 64 cannot ban citizens of voting every elections, even if the majority doesn't like the Arab voters, for instance. Who will push the brake and said, no, this we will overwrite? Right now, it's the Supreme Court. The question is how many times the Supreme Court takes this right and use it, and in what cases. So it's quite understandable that it should be balanced. There should be a tension like other democracies, and also there should be a balance. Now the Prime Minister decided, and I think he did the right thing, to suspend the legislation and to start a dialogue under the President umbrella, Mr. Szlak Herzog, who is a very highly appreciated president. He was the chairman of the Jewish Agency, my organization, before. So he will host the talks between the opposition and the government, probably in the next 2 months, to try to get to a formula that both sides will be either happy with it or maybe unhappy with it. Because sometimes an agreement, Yair, is a win-win, and sometimes it's a lose-lose. It can't be any more. It can be a successful agreement if only one side happy. Either both of them will be unhappy or both of them happy. I think Mr. Herzog is a very qualified politician. He has a long experience in that matter, and I wish him lots of luck in this mission to try to find a way that Israel will get back to on track, and this issue, which is a very tense issue, will be solved in the near future. Let's hope.
Yaron, 2 more minutes on the selection or appointment of judges, because that is a contentious issue, right? Sure. Bougie, or I should not call him Bougie. That's me knowing him from his days as the chairman of the Jewish Agency, President Herzog. And I mean that with tremendous amount of respect, and I apologize for the slip of tongue there. But President Herzog has obviously put forth a different formula, which was not accepted. And it's important to understand that this is part of the conversation.
Right.
Why is that part of the conversation?
Because the question, who will have the majority in the committee which nominate the Supreme Court judges? Actually, it nominates all the judges in Israel, but we're focusing only on the Supreme Court, which is the most important. And by the way, world-respected Supreme Court of Israel, including in other democracies. Right now, the committee which nominates the judges has 9 members, 2 ministers and 2 members of the Knesset, which means 4 politicians. Then they have 3 judges, acting judges of the Supreme Court, and also 2 members of the law bar. So all in all, 9 members, 4 politicians, and 3 judges, 2 members of the bar. But the law says that to nominate a Supreme Court judge, you need a majority of 7 out of 9, which means no group has an absolute majority to move forward. There must be a coalition, either between the politicians and the bar, or at least one judge. One judge out of the 3 should be part of any agreement. And by the way, Minister of Justice Ayelet Shaked, she is from the right-wing government, and she was for a long time a Minister of Justice in previous governments. She managed to nominate conservative judges to the Supreme Court. She said at that time that it must be more balanced. It can't be the way it was before. And she was successful because she made a coalition with the Chief Justice at that time of the Supreme Court. Now the government says we have to change the formula, and we must give the majority, the power to the politicians, and even the coalition, which means we, the coalition, will have the majority in that committee, and will be able to nominate the judges, including changing the formula. How do we nominate the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court? Right now, the veteran judge after the Supreme Court Chief Justice, he is going to be the next one in the line. That's it says. He is the most experienced, he or she will get the job. They say, no, no, no. The committee should nominate the Supreme Court Chief Justice, and we want to control, we want to have the majority. The coalition right now, or any coalition in the future, will have the majority. And people who protested said, no, 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 politicians should not, there should be more balance. We should find a way to nominate judges in a more balanced way, and not giving the power to the politicians when they nominate the judges. And the judges owe the coalition their nominations, and they would like to be very flexible and nice to the coalition. This is a very big question, and I'm sure it will be on the table of our president, Mr. Yitzhak Bougie Herzog.
Just to name the tension, today's nomination of judges sits, the power base sits with the judges. The proposed reform shifts the power base to the elected majority in the Knesset. And yet there has to be something in the middle that will create the right tension for an appointment process. And that's, I think, what needs to be where the consensus is going to come in. I know that President Herzog proposed something that was just shy of where the coalition wanted to be. I think that's where a consensus will be. Final few words on, and I take a deep sigh, the impact of all this on Israeli society, and maybe in a positive way. If we had to shine a light on democracy in the world today, where democracy didn't go into violence in the streets, looting, but yet was able to use its voice to convince a ruling government that a new track needs to be taken. It was done in Israel. Right? Of all places in the world, there wasn't, and I'm going to name January 6th. There wasn't a January 6th. No. Israel did it a different way. And I think that is a light, when we talk about a light upon nations, we have to remember that is our role. Let's talk about the future and the potential that we see from now.
First of all, this is the power of democracy, the freedom of speech, the freedom to protest, the freedom to go to the streets and rally against an elected government. And it doesn't matter if it was elected yesterday or it was elected 10 months ago. This is what we have seen. We also saw that everybody is united around the flag. The Israeli Magen David flag was part of the protest. It's also part of the winners in the government. So everyone was united around the flag. I do hope that the coming days, which is Yom Ha'atzmaut and Yom Zikaron and Yom Shoah, which are very, very important. I would mention it might be even the holy days of the Israel as a nation. I hope all the ceremonies will not be interrupted by rallies and protesters. Last year, unfortunately, when Prime Minister Bennett was trying to give speeches, the supporters of the current government interrupted and didn't let him to complete sentences. And it wasn't very, very nice. I do hope that the tension will stop at the gate of the ceremonies coming up in the month of April in Israel. And I do hope, with the goodwill of the president, that both camps will understand again that we live together. We are the same people, the people of Israel. We should take it move forward. We have enemies around Israel who are looking and would love to see this separation and friction and controversy. And this is also important to remember. At the end of the day, debate, yes. Rally, yes. Freedom of the speech, yes. But the debate comes to the parliament and by the elected body of the society, of the Israeli constituency, with the supervision and the umbrella of the president, which I think at that current time is crucial and important. Let's hope. And be optimistic.
Yaron, I pray, hope, continue to convey our messages of support and concern at the same time. When we reflect on the tensions that we're feeling from the outside world, the rise of anti-Semitism, the way this narrative has been spun in I'm going to say, in the media, not Israeli media, but not only Israeli media, but North American media, Israel's apartheid state, the democracy is crumbling. I think it's so important for us as Jews to be united more than ever. We don't have to be uniform. We're all entitled to our opinions. Civil discourse is an important part of the Jewish tradition. But we must be united and recognize that there is democracy in Israel. It has to play itself out. The people of Israel have spoken. They have shown that they're not apathetic. They care deeply about their Zionist nation and about what needs to go forward as a country. And I think our role in Montreal, I can't speak for other communities, is to always be supportive of the everyday citizen who's struggling with these issues, both on this side and on that side, understanding that unity is the key here for us, especially as we think about Chag Pesach, the Zman Cherutenu, the liberation of the Jewish people. We have the liberty to have these arguments. 80 years ago, the Nazis took that away from us, and here we are, a nation stronger than ever. Let's be united. Don't have to be uniform. As I just
Amen.
think about the Todah, I think about the Yoms, Yom HaShoah, Yom HaZikaron, Yom HaAtzmaut, important dates in our national calendar that unify us as a Jewish people. Let us just remember that it is that unity that will make us stronger. I hope that our Jewish community of Montreal, Yaron, you're invited. We'll be celebrating Yom HaAtzmaut on the 26th of April at 11 o'clock downtown. Watch out for all the emails and publicity about it, but come out, celebrate Israel's democracy with our community on April 26th. I will be in Israel, fortunately celebrating there, and we look forward to seeing you very soon. Yaron, thank you very much. Chag Pesach Sameach, and I look
Chag
forward
Sameach.
to future dialogue.
Sure. Thank you very much for having me, Yair, and Chag Sameach to all the listeners.
MiniFed is our sneak peek of what's going on inside Federation CJA. We've invited Natou Suissa, Director of Financial Resource Development, to give us an update on how the annual campaign impacts the Montreal Jewish community. Hi, Natou. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here and give you an update. We just recently closed our campaign 2022, and I want to thank every single member of our community who invested and participated in this important campaign. I would like also to thank our leader, David Cape, who is our chair of this two-year campaign, and the entire campaign cabinet, who really has done an outstanding job this year of going above and beyond. The investment in our campaign for our Montreal Jewish community is really an important investment. I believe truly that every single person in the Montreal Jewish community is a recipient of the work of Federation CJA. Regardless if you participate in March of the Living, Birthright, Jewish day schools, you name it, you've been impacted by the work of Federation CJA. And an investment and a gift to Combined Jewish Appeal supports every one of these initiatives.
So, Natou, what are the kinds of organizations that are supported by the campaign dollars from CJA?
We have many impact partners in Montreal that support very different causes. So if you're part of March of the Living, that's a Federation program. Birthright, PJ Library. We also work with partners such as Family Store and MATA, OMETS, Cummings for Seniors, the Holocaust Museum. I can go on and on and on. We have many, 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 many partners. And it's exciting for us because that ensures that every single priority within our community is being met. All the needs are being met. And when there's things like COVID that happened overnight, we were able to step up and support every single organization in Montreal, from our schools to our camps that, would have shut their doors if they didn't have the support. Jewish day schools, we invested a lot of money to ensure that the kids had the best experience, safe experience, and the teachers. And we also invested in all the food security to ensure that people had the ability and access to food, and people that couldn't leave their house, even if it was not a financial barrier, but were either elderly and couldn't leave their house, that they were able to have food delivered to them. So I think Federation CJA is the only organization that looks after the entire landscape. There are many, many unbelievable, incredible organizations in Montreal, but there's only one that has the pulse of the entire community, that's there to ensure. If we look right now at security, after what happened in Pittsburgh, we did an audit of the full security in our synagogues and in our schools to see what was needed. And Federation ran a campaign, stepped in, and we're in the midst of looking at every single school and synagogue that wanted to take part has their own protocol, has a system in place for their school. So nobody else has that lens except for Federation CJA.
Now, you accept donations large and small. Are any donations too small?
There's no such thing as a small donation. I think I would love to get to a point where every single person in the Montreal Jewish community invests into this campaign, whatever amount they're able to invest, because that really comes down and says people say, I believe in this community, I'm here to support it, and I will invest. So every single dollar counts. And not only every single dollar counts, I think it's important. It's important for us to be able to go out and say that we have X amount of donors that believe in this organization and the strength of it and the future of it. If we want a strong community, the same one that I know I grew up in and that I want for my kids and my grandkids, then it's not going to happen on its own. Every single person needs to invest into this collective called Combined Jewish Appeal.
Now, some people surely give directly to various institutions within the community. So why is it important to also give, and especially to give, to the central hub being CJA?
So like I said, I think every organization in the city is a great organization and does critical work. At the same time, I think there's only one organization that looks at the well-being and the health of the entire community and balances where to invest and looks at it strategically. And if I can read something, which to me is our mission, it's not our mission statement, I would say it's an impact statement. And I think it says it all. And an investment in Federation CJA is an investment in a stronger Jewish community and provides the best opportunity to make a significant, extensive, and long-term impact. No other organization has the depth and breadth to support community today, evaluate our community's changing landscape, rise to our greatest challenges, and capitalize on our most exciting possibilities. This is our debt to our ancestors and our promise to future generations. That to me says it all.
That's very nice. So last word then on future generations. What's your message for the younger generation to begin giving and begin their lifetime journey of giving to CJA?
Get involved. Give of your time. Give, the giving financially will come, but get involved. This is your community. It's for you to build it, to strengthen it, and to ensure that it has a strong foundation for their kids, their grandkids, and for as long as if we want to have a strong, vibrant Montreal Jewish community, it'll be only as strong as the investment people put in of their time, of their resources. And that's my advice.
Okay. And of course, our listeners can get more information or get involved by going to our website at federationcja.org. I'd like to thank you, Natou, for coming in and talking with us today. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
As we draw closer to Israel's 75th birthday, Yair reflects upon the current state of affairs inside Israel today.
We're sitting here days before Passover, a holiday which symbolizes our freedom, Zman Cherutenu, Mitziat Mitzrayim, a time for reflection on where we are today and to take pause and to recognize that what's happening in Israel today is part of that freedom that we all yearn for during our time in Egypt. Democracy is at its best when everyone has a say and is done in a discourse that is civil and that provides everyone an opportunity to weigh in. There is a lot of political and civil strife in Israel going on because of the proposed judicial reform. And as the Jewish people have always had, we must continue to have a normal discourse on this situation. That is who we are as a people. And as we see Israel being torn apart, it saddens me to think that we've moved away from our ability to have normal civilized conversation about something that fundamentally every government since 1995 has tried to achieve. But what's important is that the process is done in a way that brings together a broad coalition of Israeli society to make sure that it captures where we want to be as a Jewish state. Right after Passover, we will be commemorating Yom HaShoah, of course, commemorating the Holocaust and the unforgivable loss of 6 million Jews. And thereafter, we will be commemorating Yom HaZikaron, the price that Israeli men and women as young as 18 or even younger sometimes pay in order to preserve a Jewish state, a democratic Jewish state for the Jewish people. And then we'll get to celebrate Yom HaAtzmaut, an opportunity for us to celebrate that the Jewish democracy, a bastion of hope, a bastion of aspiration, of the best of the Jewish people in the center of the Middle East. I urge us as a Jewish community, as a Jewish world, to remember that unity does not always mean uniformity, but what unity means is the ability to look each other in the eye and have civil discourse and conversation about difficult matters that are affecting our world today as Jews, as democratic societies, and do so in a civilized manner. And my prayer as we enter Passover is that we take a moment to remember how much our freedom matters, and that we take this opportunity to engage in that civil discourse so that we can all be at a better place as we get into Yom HaShoah, Yom HaZikaron, and Yom HaAtzmaut. I wish all of us a Chag Pesach Sameach. May we continue to be a light upon nations, and let us celebrate Israel independence as she turns 75 once again, together in unity, understanding uniformity is not where we will be. Chag Sameach, everyone.
Federation CJA's Russian-speaking Jewish, or RSJ, philanthropy division celebrates Russian-speaking Jewish culture, traditions, and history while working together to create a thriving future for the community. They bring first- and second-generation Russian-speaking Jews together through community engagement opportunities, philanthropic ventures, and social networking. They recently recognized their outstanding volunteers. This year's award went to the Ukrainian Newcomer Center, La Terrasse, for outstanding services which exemplify the Jewish values of chesed and tzedakah for Klal Yisrael and Tikkun Olam, or justice and charity for the Jewish people in repairing the world. So today we'd like to welcome Igor Ezriel and Olga Saknina. Welcome to you both.
Hi.
Hi.
Thank you.
So Igor and Olga, please tell us a little bit about yourselves, what you do, and what brings you here today.
Okay, I own the Hotel Terrace. During COVID, I have commercial tenants left, and I have a space empty. And when its war started, I decided I was planning to help to Ukraine to send it some stuff. I start to accumulate the stuff inside at my commercial locale. And I met with Olga, and we decided to make bigger place. In the beginning, it was a small place because I still have commercial tenants, but our place was growing, and I'll ask tenants to leave. We have a deadline for May 1st, and we make a place even bigger.
So for those that don't know, the Hotel La Terrasse is located on Côte de Neige, in between Edouard Montpetit and Queen Mary.
Exactly.
And it's been around for many, many years. And you
50 to 53 years.
over 50 years.
Yeah.
Wow. And you've been the owner for the last 7 years.
7, 8 years, yeah.
Okay. So the expansion you're talking about and creating space. So what's this for? What is the Newcomer Center?
Newcomer center to people who's coming from Ukraine, to help to these people with accommodation, with integration in Quebec, in Montreal, in Canada, and just to help to these people, because these people, they don't know where they're going, they have no friends, no families, no staff, because when the war started, like, they don't have a lot of clothes. They just take whatever they can take. They take kids and they're coming to Montreal, to Canada. This is why we decided to help to these people. I was planning to do something to do in Ukraine, but I decided it's much easier to spend my time here in Montreal. I can help to more people.
Okay. And where are you both from?
I'm originally from Bela Tserkov. It's not far from the Kiev, and Olga from the Kiev. And it's like 80, 90 kilometers.
So you feel a personal connection to the
For sure.
story that's
For
unfolding
sure.
before our eyes right
sure.
now.
We have a lot of relatives. We have a lot of friends who still in Ukraine.
Yeah.
And my parents-in-law in Ukraine. And we still, and Olga have a lot of friends and relatives who still live in Ukraine, in Kiev.
So, Olga, you've even left your job for a while to spend your time working in the center.
I decided that because I don't have time to... Because I'm baker, so I stopped my bakery for a while because I don't have time to spend like in both places. I have no energy for that. So I decided to help people instead of work.
So that's extremely generous of you. Tell us what have you been doing at the center? What do you do to create a center?
So
there?
we have now we have like more options for like to help them, because when they arrive, like they fill up the paper first. So we try to organize how we can help them in the beginning. And then they can take clothes, what we have. We have like hygiene product to give. We have French courses and English courses too. We have a lot of activities for kids. So we try to organize everything, how we can help them.
And how many people have come through the center since you opened it?
We have thousands family who pass this place. Maybe 4,000, maybe more than 4,000.
4,000, yeah.
4,000
families.
Families.
Yeah, you can multiply by 2, by 3.
Okay, so this is not just the Jewish community then, this extends even beyond.
Yeah. Like...
You're talking about Ukrainian newcomers to Montreal.
Yes.
That's really quite incredible. So that's why it's become a full-time job for you. There's so many people coming through the center.
Of course, because like in the beginning we was open 7 days a week, then we cut a little bit hours. So now we open 2 days a week, but rest of the days, like Monday to Friday, we have French and English courses. Till the people waiting for government courses, they have chance to come to our place and get that course, like in the beginning.
What feedback have you had from some of the Jewish Ukrainians that have come through your center in terms of the reception that you've given them, the welcome you've given them? What's the feedback been like?
They're very happy, and I think that most of the people, like they're saying always, thank you for helping, and it's big help from our place, I think.
You must have a lot of volunteers with you.
Yeah, like we have 10 volunteers, like it's general volunteers, but we have like more than 20 volunteers who helps us.
Mm-hmm. Any stories that stand out in particular from some of the newcomers? Any feedback that you've had that really stands out in terms of stories you've heard from people who have fled their home and ended up here in Montreal?
Like, yeah, of course, we have a lot of families who we're seeing like every week, but most of the family, I remember like since beginning when they left Mariupol and Kharkov, they left without anything. So we still continue with them. We're still calling them. We're still helping them with the kids because some kids stop to talk. So we try to find the doctors. We try to find like way how we can help them to integrate here.
I imagine that most people that are here now from the Ukraine want to go back because they left people behind, whether it's their husbands, their parents, children perhaps. What do you hear from them?
Yes, some people wants to go back, definitely. But some people have no place to go back. They have no house. They have no apartments. It's destroyed. And some people from like kind of Zaporozhye, Mariupol, it's occupied by a Russian army. They have no place to go back. And nobody knows how long it's going to take to get Ukrainians back the land. Ukrainian land to get them back. Nobody knows about this. This is why some people, they have no place to go back. And they decided definitely they're going to stay in Montreal, in Canada. They're very happy. And some people, yes, they're thinking to go back because not everybody was planning to go to Canada. It's not like Jewish generation immigrants and then other immigrants who was planning to go to Canada. They have in mind to come to Canada to find a job, to learn the language. And this is what they're planning to do for years. This is people, they just decided to go because they have no place to go.
Now, Igor, you're first and foremost a business person. You own a hotel and you're in business to fill your hotel. But you spent 3 years filling it for the purpose of pandemic relief. And now you're spending a year and a half filling it with people that are coming from the Ukraine. Why are you doing that? What is leading you to do such generous work for the community?
Somebody have to do this. If it's not me, who is going to do?
I think that's
and this is I was born in Ukraine, and I have opportunity. Not everybody have opportunity like me. Not many people who have a place like I have. This is why if it's not me, who's going to do it?
That sounds like a wonderful biblical phrase from Hillel. If not me, who then? And if not now, when? And I'm misquoting a little bit, but it's very touching. So thank you.
Not
Igor.
everybody like me have this opportunity to do.
I thank you both for coming in, and I congratulate you on being the award winners from RSJ Philanthropy for the extraordinary work that you're doing. It's really quite something.
We would like to say thank you so much for Jewish Generation to give us this award.
So if people would like to help, they can call you at 514-360-4240 or visit your website at unkmontreal.ca. That's unkmontreal.ca. Igor and Olga, thank you so much for coming in, and kol hakavod to you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
To help us introduce our next guest, let's welcome back Nancy Brightman, Senior Director of Strategic Marketing and Communications. Hi, Nancy.
Hey, Glenn. I'm very excited. We're chatting with the guys from YidLife Crisis. YidLife Crisis, well, as you know, of course, is a web TV comedy series starring Jamie Ellman and Ellie Battalion. And the comedians on the show grew up together and studied Yiddish at Bialik High School in Côte St. Luc.
That's right, Nancy. My alma mater, Bialik. Sholom Aleichem, Chaverim. Sei begrüßt.
Aleichem Shalom. Vos herzlich, amigos.
All is wonderful in Montreal. Tell us, where are you guys, and what have you been up to lately?
Well, this is Jamie here, a.k.a. Jaime. I'm at my West Coast YidLife operations headquarters. This is where we handle more of the, hippie aspects of the YidLife Crisis project, some of the more patchouli, perhaps, as Ellie once said, cannabis-infused Judaism that we bring to YidLife Crisis. I'm here on the West Coast handling that. And Laser, where are you at?
I'm here in a very exotic location. I'm not sure if you've heard of it. It's called Côte St. Luc. Beautiful spot. Very kosher here. And we're representing on both coasts, but preparing each in our own capacity for the upcoming Pesach. Also preparing to go to Germany, believe it or not. We actually have a little tour planned in Germany. Who knew they wanted us back, but they do, apparently. We actually did, all jokes aside, go to Frankfurt last year, survived, and are now going back to Berlin and Munich and perhaps other places. So that's our latest. But really, in the short term, we're just trying to figure out how to get this frickin' chumetz out of here. That's all.
Terrific. So tell us a little bit about your upcoming tour. What are you guys going to be doing in Germany?
Okay, what are we doing? Well, we're doing a bunch of things. We're actually excited to play the Jewish Museum Berlin, the prestigious Jewish Museum Berlin. We are going to perform our headlining show we call YidLife. We are going to lay the shtick on them hard this time. It's to kick off the Kultur Somar Festival, which takes place every summer in Berlin, and we're very excited to have this sort of kickoff spot. And we're also going to be, of course, representing Montreal. As you well know, Glenn, we are self-appointed representatives of the Montreal Jewish community, comedy peacekeepers, if you will. And we will be presenting our self-proclaimed modern classic documentary, Judaism, A Taste of Jewish Montreal, as part of the Berlin Jewish Film Festival. And in fact, even presenting a series of films curated by YidLife Crisis that are the Canadian Jewish films that we're going to give them as a little sampling, a little Vorspice, if you will, of Canadian Jewish cinema from the past few decades. So that's what we're doing in Berlin. And the rest of the things we're doing, we're not really at liberty to say. They take place before in the early dawn hours, and our families might be listening to this. We can't talk about that.
Oh, well, we look forward to hearing about that offline at another time. But you guys have already been to Poland, you've been to Israel, across the U.S., so you're international Jewish superstars. Has it gone to your head?
Yeah, totally. We can't go to the Cavendish Mall without being recognized. I find it very difficult to go to IGA, quite frankly. We're a really big deal past the overpass, basically.
That's true. We are certainly legends in our own mind, as you know. Although, by the way, joking aside, I just want to say I haven't actually spoken to Ellie since this happened, but I happen to know that Ellie was away in the States, in Stowe, recently for the weekend, and we got a message on our social media saying, in like all caps, "Is Laser in Stowe?" I think I just saw it, and I was like, and I immediately texted him. I was like, Ellie, lay low. Lay low. The Yidden are everywhere. You cannot escape to Top Notch or wherever you think you're doing to lay low. They know what. Laser, they're watching.
So you guys are award winners, I mean, and well beyond the borders of Côte Saint-Luc. I mean, you are known far and wide. You've won awards. Tell us a bit about the awards that you've won.
Thank you. Our show has been called one of the top 1,000 things to happen to the Yiddish language in the last 1,000 years. That was actually said by my auntie Maxine, and I think one of our Yiddish teachers, Lorna Smith, at Bialik. But anyways, can you, but also, can you really trust a Yiddish teacher named Lorna Smith? I mean, that doesn't sound like it. Anyway, Glenn, by the way, Nancy, do you know Glenn? Glenn, I just got to give Glenn a shout out here. Glenn obviously is I'm going to say he's an iconic Jewish Montrealer. You can, I'm putting him up against the Bronfmans and Canada Adler. Listen, Glenn does deserve whatever Glenn is getting. He deserves it. Believe me, he deserves double that shtuss.
I agree. No argument.
I want to tell you something. No, Nancy, I want to tell you something. Have you seen? I know you like our Mayim episode, but have you seen our episode called Jewish General Hospital?
Of course, I have. I've seen every episode.
Am I crackly?
I find you very crackly, Ellie, but it's not crackly and poppy. You know what I mean?
I just want to wish everyone a freilichen Pesach and a joyeux Pack, a joyous pack. Have a super pack this year. Stack up that Migdal cheese, that kosher for Pesach Migdal cheese, making unlimited cheese and matzah sandwiches. That's my favorite part of the year. And wishing the very best on behalf of YidLife Crisis, if in fact you can hear me, or if you can hear Jamie.
We do indeed. Schönem Dank zu mein Freund Jaime and Ellie. Soll sein mit Mazel und mit Glück. Soll sein Felach. And you should have a good Passover and burn your chametz right away.
Be well.
Schönem größten Dank. Freilichen Pesach.
Sei gesund, guys. And now a word about an upcoming event.
Hi, Hi, I'm Judy from Federation CJA, the Director of Young Adult Engagement and PJ Library, and I want to tell everyone about a fun upcoming event. We've got Family Mitzvah Day coming up on Sunday, April 23rd. It's going to be held at the Gelber Conference Center at 5151 Côte St. Catherine. Bring the family, 3 to 5 p.m. It's going to be a great opportunity to do good with your family, with the community. We're planning a great number of activities for Mitzvah Day with a parent committee. We're going to be packing food bags for families that are in need. We're going to be doing kindness boards to cheer up those who need kindness and cheering up. We're going to be making staka boxes and having a mitzvah market and more. And because it's also a mitzvah to celebrate, we're going to be celebrating PJ Library's book birthday. So join us for a book birthday party. Bring kids 12 and under. So this is geared to kids 12 and under, but also babies are welcome. And we still need volunteers and we still need sponsors. So get in touch with me, Judy, JUDY.Kremer, KREMER, at federationcja.org. And keep an eye out, stay tuned if you want to hear about our activity and sign up for Mitzvah Day. Go to jlive.app. There'll be a link there where you can see our event. And follow us on Facebook and Instagram at jen.mtl and at Federation CJA. Hope to see you there.
It's time for questions from you, our listeners. Email us with your questions for Yair about the Jewish community and Federation services. Send us your first name, where you're from, and your question to podcast@federationcja.org, and we'll try to answer you on the next episode. This month's standing ovation goes to 5 long-standing volunteer canvassers, we're talking decades long, who put a lot of heart into their work. They go above and beyond the call of duty and add their personal touch to their canvassing efforts. They are Betty Toporski, Nat Kurtzman, Miriam Amzalag, Sandy Martz, and Arthur Roskis. Arthur was also honored by Federation CJA last year for his canvassing over a lifetime. Thank you, and a hearty yasher koach to all of you. And finally, we'll close out today's episode with one more thing from Yair.
At the end of February, I had the opportunity to travel with our national advocacy agent, CJA, with their board of directors to the UAE, Dubai and Abu Dhabi, and then to Israel. And by the way, during our meetings in Israel, we had many opportunities to engage in conversations with Knesset members about the judicial reform. I would like to share with you a different perspective, because during my time in Abu Dhabi, I got to meet a young lady by the name of Eliesha El Hassan, and to discuss the fact that she's been to Israel on a number of occasions and to get her perspective, what Israel means to her. And I thought it'd be interesting to, as we're very engaged, the Jewish people in the current situation of what's happening in Israel, to get an outside perspective of a young lady who is about 25 years old, who's visited Israel, and to see what she has to say about our beautiful country. I'm sitting here with Eliazia El Husseini at Trends, which is a research and advisory group in Abu Dhabi. Eliazia.
Yes, Eliazia.
Eliazia, I apologize.
No problem.
Thank you for taking this time to talk to me for 2 minutes. You have spent quite a bit of time in Tel Aviv at the Tel Aviv University Moshe Dayan Institute.
Yes.
And I thought maybe to share with our listeners for 2 minutes, what are your thoughts of Israel, what you've seen, and your experience?
Okay, first of all, I want to say Shalom Aleichem and Tuda Ruba for taking the time to interview me or podcast me. I think I was one of the lucky ones to be an Emirati, to be working at a global think tank. That's main objective is to bridge different global think tanks around the world and bring them together into one table. But I think I was one of the lucky ones too, to look through the unfiltered lens of who Israelis are, through their welcoming, tolerant, moderate traits. I believe that the Abraham Accords is no surprise coming from the children of the late Sheikh Zayed bin Sultan Al Nahyan, because then again, I say again, to be an Emirati is to be Zayed. And for me to be Zayed, I have to be tolerant, resilient, peace-loving, moderate, and welcoming. But I think I want to touch on how beautiful Israel is and how beautiful the people are. I say this again, Israel is like California, away from California, and in the Middle East. So right across the door to me. So instead of getting into a flight for a 14-hour trip, I can get into a flight for a 3-hour trip and be in Israel. The food there is amazing. I think what I loved mostly there is that it was full of young people. That vibe, chill, they would talk, communicate, laugh all together. And what I loved the most is that they opened the doors to tolerance and diversity. They made me feel like I was home, away from home. And I think I mostly felt that on a Shabbat table. I had the chance to taste, see, experience the Jewish community on a table. And they made me feel like I wasn't an outsider. I was an insider. And it wasn't us and them. It was us together as one. And it taught me that Israelis and Emiratis share this concept, is that we look at people for who they are, despite their ethnicity, their religion, or who they believe in, or where they come from. We sit together on a table looking at each other for the people that we are and not where we come from. And I think that's what was beautiful. And I would recommend everyone to visit 2 places in Israel. I think the first one is the Shuk HaKarmel market, which is like an international market that has the best falafel stand. And there's another restaurant called Vitrina. Oh my God, the burger there is amazing. They don't use ketchup, they use jam. So I think that was the most amazing thing, and I'm totally going back. Ever since the Abraham Accords was signed, I visited Israel 4 times, and I'm totally going back.
It is incredible to hear your story. It is incredible because you give so much hope for peace, understanding that the connection between people eventually will bring to peace, and you're doing it yourself. You're giving the example, as they say in Hebrew, ata dugma. Continue to do so, and anytime you want to come to Canada, we'd love to host you there.
I would love to come to Canada.
Not in winter.
Not in winter, totally. Please, in summer. I'm a summer girl.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Toda ruba.
Toda lach.
Thank you, Yair, and thank you to our guests, Yaron, Natou, Ellie, Jamie, and Eliaza. And thanks to you, our listeners, for tuning in. We hope you've enjoyed this episode. If you did, please leave a comment, rate us, and please share us with friends and family. And be sure to click the subscribe button wherever you're listening to this so that you get the next episode directly in your inbox or your podcast queue. Our executive producer is Senior Director of Marketing and Strategic Communications, Nancy Brightman. Our technical producer is Daniel Moskovich. I'm Glenn J. Nashin, the producer of the Federation CJA 360 podcast, the pulse of Montreal's Jewish community.
Thanks for listening. To find out more about Federation CJA, the impact we have in the Montreal Jewish community, Israel and around the world, visit us at federationcja.org on Facebook and on Instagram. Until next month, Shalom.